And right now we're ready to move on to our next speaker, Jack Griffin from Kwalee. Do we have Jack in the studio already?
Hi, yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's pretty chill here at the moment, but looking forward to giving the talk and seeing
Great.
what questions people have.
It seems like it's sunny today in London, right?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's a bit bright, but the winds are pretty chilly at the moment, so it's a bit of a weird mix, England weather. So
That's very nice. So, first question coming from me, like I've heard like a kind of story, but I never did into the details. Kwalee has a very interesting logo. It's a fingerprint. Can you give us like more information about what it is? Why do you have a fingerprint on your logo?
yeah, so if I'm remembering it correctly, our CEO used to have a boat, um, and on the boat, it might have been called Kwalee or had a similar name, but the symbol on it was a handprint. So when he created the company, that logo is kind of like carried across and used as sort of the Kwalee brand.
Yeah, that's a great story, and the high five on the logo is great. So we are very excited for your talk. Yielding the stage to you right now. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Jack. I'm a publishing manager from Kwalee. I was actually Kwalee's first publishing manager, so I was able to kind of see how the department, you know, initially grew from its early stages to where we're at now, and kind of observe the changes of projects and kind of our success over time. So I'll be going into today just what makes hyper casual publishing a success. Some of the things that we've learned that maybe might benefit you guys. So just a little bit about Kwalee. We're the UK's biggest hyper casual games publisher. So there's a photo of some of the team there at the moment. We're actually more than 75 people at the moment. We've got a new studio opening in Bangalore as well. So we're kind of expanding our reaches, and we've managed to achieve over 400 million downloads. So we've got quite a good grasp of the hyper casual and casual market. So here's some photos of the team. We look to acquire hyper casual experts, people that have produced or worked on hits and have a real drive to understand and learn more about hyper casual, because it's really important to have that passion to keep up with how fast the market changes. And we've also been able to develop dedicated publishing team that covers everything from QA to marketing to technical support. And what this allows us to do is work with teams of all sizes, whether it's a 20-man team or a one-man developer who maybe can't do all of the QA, all of the programming, everything on their own. And that's put us in quite a good position. So the first of the games that we'll be looking at today is Rocket Sky. And this was actually our first publishing hit. And this game was launched in summer 2019. It's produced by DP Space AG. So they're a developer from Latvia and Russia, and it went on to achieve more than 25 million downloads. So we'll just be looking into some of the process of what went into that, publishing the first game, and then we'll kind of look at how that compares to the process today. So the pitch for the game, when we first saw the game, it was a really compelling gameplay. It fitted really nicely into the trends at the time, of having kind of a progression as you upgrade this rocket, and then you look to launch it into space and get further and further with each new run. And it kind of gives that feel good moment to the player where you feel like you're doing something, you're succeeding, you're getting further each time. And at the point where we were kind of shown the game, it was already very polished, and there was an incredible amount of content. And that to us was already a good sign, because the developers already got that far on their own without having kind of a support network around them to bounce ideas off of, like publishers and view market trends. And when we actually went on to test the game, it had a fantastic retention. The retention was sort of 50-60% plus, which for a hyper casual game, immediate green flag of this has potential, users are loving it. But on the other side of the coin, the CPI came in really high. We're talking sort of above 50-60% in some of the tier 1 territories. And that was kind of a challenge that we then had to look at of how can we bring this down? How can we take this game that people love and market it to a wider audience. So what we did in the end, we immediately started with trying to test out new visuals. Can we change rocket assets? Can we change backgrounds? Is there anything we can do to try and make this appeal to a wider audience? And what that kind of the road that kind of took us down was making sure that all of our analytics were as advanced as possible. We were also trying to meet the CPI halfway by improving the LTV of the game. And this led to developments like having auto bidding and header bidding, having cutting edge A/B testing. That means we can be sure when we're saying, we should make this change, that it is actually having the benefit that we think it was. That way we're not operating in the dark. We wanted everything to be analytical driven, because then we can be certain. And it also provides a lot of security to development teams that, this is what's working in games. And this is something that can be applied to not only Rocket Sky, but future projects as well. And the change that had the biggest influence in the end, that actually led to cutting the CPI in half, was the fuel and temperature gauge that you can kind of see on some of the screenshots was originally at the top. And what we found is when you watch that video, the player's attention is immediately at the top of the screen. He's not actually looking at the environment or the rocket or the gameplay. So we moved these onto the rockets in an animation. We tested those, and we saw that from that animation, CPI had come down more than half. And then we fed it back to the developers and said, hey, we've seen this change. We should put it into the game, make sure it doesn't influence retention or any of the metrics. And it went on to have a really positive effect. So here's a quick print screen just showcasing that, and it looks quite minimal when you think about it. Not a whole lot changed, but just being able to divert the viewer's attention to something a bit more engaging in the gameplay can have huge differences. And sometimes little tweaks like this can be overlooked. And from this, we were able to get a successful launch for Rocket Sky. It achieved over 25 million downloads, was #1 in numerous territories. In the arcade category, over 52 countries, being #1. And it not only that, but the game itself also monetizes very strongly, even now where we're more than a year down the line, it's still generating very good revenue. And I think that could be a misconception about hyper casual as well. So here we've got one of our more recent projects. It's called OverTake. So this was published in February 2020, achieved more than 2 million downloads in the first month, and it was developed by Prinitis, and they're based in Romania. So what we really learned over the time between Rocket Sky and OverTake was that in hyper casual, speed is absolutely crucial, and we wanted to really focus on ironing anything out that for developers that might hold them up. So you've got things like localization that can take time, anything to do with A/B testing, long lists of ad networks trying to go into the game for monetization, just making sure that we can make as much drag and drop and one click as possible. And what this allowed us to do is, whereas we were working on Rocket Sky for a couple of months to kind of fix it and get it out and get everything integrated, with OverTake, from the point of signing, we're actually able to soft launch the game within 2 weeks. So we worked at a really, really fast pace, and improvements actually occurred within that time as well. So just to showcase a little bit about OverTake, the developers kind of pitched it to us as they wanted to put forward the first truly hyper casual driving game. And what's meant by this is in capturing the sense that you're really engaging and driving that vehicle, swapping lanes, more so than some of the maybe slightly more distant racing games that are out at the moment, where you kind of take like a more top view or 2D approach. And what this led to is a really engaging mechanic with some fantastic camera work, that gave you a really good sense of enjoyment as you're weaving in and out of traffic. And this fun gameplay and fast-paced action translated really, really well to video ads, which meant on the other side of the coin to Rocket Sky, the game itself had a fantastic retention. It was lower than 14 cent, so we knew immediately people were interested. And the game itself as well had a retention around 40%, so that being really, really good. But there were challenges on the monetization side with this, as the game didn't yet have the LTV that you would need for a game with even that CPI. And so what we did is we utilized a lot of the A/B test tech that we'd been building after learning from Rocket Sky, developing further, and as well as key features that helped to move OverTake away from a game that was optimized more towards in-app purchases, back towards interstitials and reward ads. And by keeping track of what works in games and what doesn't over time, we're able to place these reward ads as optional in the game in locations that draw the user's eye. They have squash and squeeze animations, they've got sheen effects, they don't interrupt the player's user experience, because that is a really crucial part, is knowing where you can and can't insert those ads, so you don't drive the user away. And that allowed us to improve the day zero LTV by more than 50% within that very tight time frame. And what this allowed us to do is take the game to market very, very quickly. Especially as Prinitis themselves were very much in line with our approach to working, of being data driven and an extremely hard working team. And being able to support them with our now larger team of having programmers, artists, designers all available to go in and help polish up different areas of the games, change UI. It really kind of highlighted to us how far we've come from the Rocket Sky project, and that we can preemptively have people ready to know where we're going to need to assist to help make sure that things kind of move through the publishing process as fast as possible, so that CPIs don't change, so that people are still interested in that trend. And this led to another successful launch. The game achieved #1 in several locations, was #1 racing game in 33 countries, and had over 2 million downloads in its first month. And this was all alongside an LTV increase of around 48% within that first couple of weeks. And so from these, we're able to take away a few key learnings. One is, it's really important to have your vision and working methods aligned with the developers that you work with. And there is like an element of best fit there. And what we found with, in both cases, DP Space AG and Prinitis, the developers had similar methods to us. They also took very data-driven approaches, which is how we like to do it as well. They wanted to make sure that any changes were being tested and that we were confident that they were having positive results. And because of that, when everyone has that vision aligned, everyone's very driven to put in the effort to go the extra mile to make sure that what's being put into the game is as high quality as possible. And it also means that there's a really strong level of communication between the teams, which means there's no confusion in implementations, and it kind of cuts out a lot of back and forth. And then the second one is, publishers aren't looking for perfection. In both cases with these games, particularly Rocket Sky, when it came to us, it wasn't really fully ready. It definitely showed a lot of promise in the prototypes, and that's what really grabs us and makes us want to get on board. And it's just about trying to find, if there's one problem in your game, whether it's retention or CPI, is there something that you can change to try and get that metric to be as strong as the other side of the coin, and if you can, leaning on a publisher or even other developers to try and achieve that, can help take something that at first glance might not be a sort of ready baked success, but it can definitely help push it across the line and get it to where it needs to be. And I think as well, kind of looking at both Rocket Sky and OverTake, it's not just about impactful visuals. A lot of a game's potential is actually the core gameplay mechanic itself. So, in Rocket Sky's case, having that upgrade mechanic that, you always want to see like what environment's next, gave us a lot to work with on the ad side. And it meant, when we did actually focus the player's attention in the game mechanic itself, that's what led to that CPI reduction, and that's what helped that game go on to be a success. And with OverTake, having that game that already generated a lot of interest, being able to pull users in, meant that we could focus on tidying up some of the monetization side and making sure that UA and retention mechanics were as good as possible, being fit in around this really engaging core gameplay loop with exciting camera work. And then, third, publishing evolves with experience. So the time differences between working on Rocket Sky and where it was just a one-man team, and then the experience with OverTake now, where we've got teams dedicated to third-party tech solutions, A/B testing, analytics, QA, monetization. Having that well-rounded team just helps move everything through as fast as possible, which in hyper casual, if you have a good CPI one week and if it's not out within a few weeks later, you might have missed your window, and that's really, really crucial. And as we've evolved, we've been able to achieve more than 400 million downloads, as well as leveraging expertise from people from different backgrounds, whether it's running studios or producing hits. And then, as I mentioned, just the timeline is a huge one for us, and making sure that process is also easy for developers, because if you can allow a developer to focus on making the game and not worry about things like localization, if you can provide QA and bug fixes, then that's time better spent, because the more times put into the game that's available to put into the game and not worrying about putting in 20 ad networks or other is better for the long-term growth of the game. And as that relationship then between publisher and developer grows, that collaboration on future projects, as well as you bounce ideas off of each other, share information on market trends, and are kind of geared up to learn from each other as well, really helps taking learnings from these projects and then applying it to future prototypes, so that you can go in together with that kind of shared expertise and already tackling problems that you may have encountered in previous projects, sort of preemptively. So if you do have any questions, if there's anything I haven't touched on today, or you have any specifics you want to know about publishing, or what helps make hyper casual games successful, definitely feel free to get in touch. So our details are up on the screen there. More than happy to take any questions as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jack. I believe more hyper-casual publishers create even more creative approaches to working with the developers and creating the pipelines and stuff, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think there's lots of really unique ways, and a lot in recent trends as well, to help developers cut down on the amount of time they're spending on projects. There's a lot of CPI testing going on where publishers, they're only asking for 1 or 2 levels to be made, and then we can take it in house. We can produce marketing videos. We can check that mechanic that you've got, that you're working on, you're building, is actually going to have an audience for it when you finish development. And I think that's a really good position to be in as a developer at the moment, where publishers in hyper casual are continuously looking at ways to make your lives easier, and so that you can focus on finding that next big hit, rather than potentially sinking in like a month on a game that might not necessarily work out.
Yeah, sure. So that's great. We have publishers for hyper casual, while the developers can focus on creativity, on developing new ideas, and doing something brand new. So question from me, if you mind, like there are a couple of ways to approach the idea generation for hyper casual games, because it's like one of the hottest topic around hyper casual at all, where you can find the brand new ideas. So what's your recommendation where to look at least for the new ideas? I've heard a very creative one, people recommending browsing trends on social media, like challenges on TikTok, like some memes and stuff, and this could be a source for creating a idea for hyper casual game developers.
Yeah, and I think that is a good idea. We've seen games that have succeeded in the past, based on trends, whether it's slap fights or cutting objects, and that is definitely one element. But for us, the kind of approach that we take at Kwalee is, a lot of the time when we're walking around the office, or whether we're hanging out after work, we're constantly asking ourselves, could I hyper casualize this? And what that kind of means is, if you're, for example, I don't know, bored at work, throwing a pencil into a cup or something, is there a hyper casual game behind that? if you're shopping, is there anything you could do there that might just be a fun little hyper casual game? And I think having people to bounce that idea off, no matter how mundane or everyday that initial topic might be, really helps. So I've got a colleague, Jake, after hours on our Creative Wednesday sessions, we'll always just sort of bounce different topics over, off of each other, whether it's making food or just playing table tennis. Can we get a hyper casual game after that? And if you just ask yourself that, I think a lot of the time you're able to find at least an idea for a mechanic, and then kind of assess afterwards, after you've bounced it off someone, seen how that develops, and whether it's worth kind of pursuing at that point. But I think just looking for inspiration in that in your day-to-day can go a long way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting comments. And we have more questions in the lectures chat. So I would kindly ask you to go to winhub.io platform, log into the chat, and talk to people a little bit. There are some great questions. And guys, if you have more of them, please get in touch with Kwalee. They have a virtual booth greatly designed on a digital expo zone. Also, they're just great guys to talk to, so please feel free to reach out to them. And thank you very much, Jack, for the talk and for answering the questions.
Thank you very much for having me.